Greetings and salutations, students of elementary Greek. I want to begin with a brief history of the Greek language, which is, of course, long and complicated, beginning as early as the 13th century BCE, with Linear B, a form of Greek language sometimes called Mycenaean Greek. For a historical reference point that might be familiar to us in the Bible world, many scholars date the Exodus from Egypt to sometime in the 13th century. So around the same time, you have this glyph form of Greek that's using syllables rather than alphabet. Fast forward to the 8th century BCE on the mainland of Greece, and there are two major forms of Greek emerging based chiefly on geography. In the western part of Greek, you have Peloponnesian, Doric Greek. On the eastern part of the country, you have Attic and Ionic Greek. Now, Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, were composed in the Ionic dialect, and that essentially standardized Ionic by the 7th century as the sort of quintessential form of the Greek language. The 5th and 6th centuries, Greek civilization flourished and written material proliferated. You had pre-Socratic philosophers, Thales and Anaximander, Anaximenes and Heraclitus, as well as the historian Herodotus, and they're all writing in Ionic. Ultimately, though, Ionic is supplanted by Attic as the more standard form of the language after the Peloponnesian War from 431 to 404 BCE. So the Peloponnesian War happens, Athens rises as the political and educational center of Greece, and when that occurs, famous orators like Thucydides and Isocrates and philosophers Plato and Aristotle write in Attic Greek. The influence of these famous orators and philosophers enshrined Attic Greek as the standard of the well-educated person that would exercise a revivalist influence during the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. So around the time the New Testament is being written, you have what's called the Second Sophistic, this revivalist movement in which Attic Greek, the flowering Attic Greek of Plato and Aristotle, is being revived as trying to infiltrate the speech and arguments of everyday writers and thinkers. Under the political expansion of Greek under Alexander the Great, of Greek power under Alexander the Great, the Greek language became the standard language of the ancient world, much like English is in the modern world. So in Asia Minor, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, Persia, even into Western India, people are speaking Greek. Now, the base of that Greek was Attic, but it morphed because of interaction with different cultures throughout the Mediterranean world. This form of Greek, this Alexander the Great traveled Greek, became known as Koine, Common Greek. Now, there were levels of Koine, ranging from the very literary historian Polybius and the philosopher Plutarch of Chaeronea to the Koine found in the papyrus fragments of letters and receipts in the trash heaps of Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. Similarly, various texts of the New Testament reflect a range of literary qualities. So we have some of the highest, more eloquent Greek that we find in the New Testament in the book of Luke and Acts, Hebrews, 1 Peter, and James. We see kind of a medium level of Greek in the letters of Paul, who can engage in sort of highfalutin rhetoric on occasion, but it's not kind of his standard. The Gospel of Matthew is kind of in this medium category. And then on kind of lower levels, we have something like the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, which tend to operate in more standard and kind of almost elementary grammatical patterns. And then you have a book like the Book of Revelation, which often uses incorrect prepositions or other forms that you wouldn't expect to see in good Greek, but it still works, and we can kind of know what's going on in the text. Last thing I want to say about sort of the history of the language and how we are going to be approaching it in this course is that we'll use what's called Erasmian pronunciation. Desiderius Erasmus was a Dutch Enlightenment thinker who revived the study of Greek, the New Testament in particular, a rough contemporary of Martin Luther. And Erasmus is a fascinating figure. Of course, his pronunciation is a bit made up, right? So there's a lot of a movement right now in the study of biblical Greek to work on pronunciation in a more accurate historical way, which is useful. The challenge is that most of the textbooks for Greek are not written that way. So in this course, we're going to use Erasmian form pronunciation of Greek. That's what we're going to teach you through the textbook that's assigned. But no, there is kind of a larger debate happening about what Greek should sound like in the classroom.